you have quite the cool job, right? It's a very cool job. Now, but you've been with your job has probably changed over the years quite
Slightly,
a bit, right?
yeah.
So, all right, so let's take them back just briefly, because when I was getting bats from you guys, literally I can remember that it was a garage,
Right?
You know, it was a garage. You had just started there because your playing career had just ended.
Yeah, I probably, in fact, major bats, you know, back then. You know, I started in 2002, that fall. I finished playing that summer. Immediately went to work for the guys at Old Hickory, and not much has changed in that. Like, if you get hired by us, you learn everything. So you start hand sanding bats, you learn how to operate the lathe, you learn how to finish bats, you know, the whole 9 yards with it. And so back then, I think there was 3 of us. So we literally did everything from start to finish with it.
Wow. And those, you know, I was never the franchise player, right? But dude, everybody wanted to use my bats,
Right?
Because I had the old Hicks, man.
Well, and that's kind of how we got our foot in the door and kept it there. Was, you know, we came along at a time, and you know, I was drafted in '98. I started using Old Hickory in 2000. The company officially opened the fall of '99. But at that time, there was only 2 or 3 bat companies, and if you weren't in the big leagues, and really if you weren't an all-star in the big leagues, like, you were just a number to them.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that attracted me early on to Old Hickory was that you were somebody to them. You know, whether you were a rookie ball guy, a AAA guy, a big league guy, or an independent league player, like, you got treated as the cream of the top. You know, it was, your bat was just as good as the big league guy getting his bat. And you couldn't find that anywhere else. And so we've tried to keep that, you know, over my 20 plus years there, that, you know, we build, it's a relationship business, like just about anything else that's going to be successful.
Yeah.
Is get to know the guys a little bit. And I always tell guys, like, if something's wrong, let us know, because if you don't tell us, then we never know and we can't fix it for you.
Right.
And even today, I'm amazed at how many companies don't do that.
Wow. Well, like, so again, you know, when you started there, those 3 of you, all right, now, were there any guys in the big leagues at that time?
David Segui,
first one?
First one.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So I was fortunate enough to be the first player to swing them, and I was minor league guy, and then David was the second.
Wow. Well, and now I got to say, like, you know, the quality even back in the early days was there. Like, because again, everybody, all the guys that had bat deals and agents and everything else, they all wanted to swing. Like, they always wanted to use my Old Hickories. And that was kind of one of the things I was remembered for in the clubhouse, which is pretty cool.
Oh yeah.
I had the best bats, you know, it was kind of neat. So how where's the company at now?
So we do about 40,000 bats a year now.
Holy cow.
We've expanded out of the garage into the first production building, which is now our showroom and some office space. We opened up in 2009, our main production facility now, and then we added a warehouse in 2018 that we do all of our shipping out of, but it also contains 2 batting cages and then our tech stuff that we can bring guys in and get into the customization of bats.
Wow. So with when those big league guys are wanting to customize stuff, obviously they've got tons of analytics that they get, you know, with their team, wherever they're at. But you guys, is that a frequent thing? Does that do they all come in to do that, or can you build based off analytics from?
Yeah, you know, the way the analytic world works now is, you know, the teams kind of own the rights to it, right? And so some teams will grant access to it more readily than other teams will.
Okay.
I think the torpedo bats coming online will help expedite that process. Knock on wood, we haven't had a lot of trouble getting the data that we need in the last month, you know, to build bats for guys.
Okay.
The nice part about it is, when guys come to us in the off season, we're bat manufacturers. We're not swing doctors. We're not, you know, hitting coaches as much as I would love to do that. We're not. And so now with this data, I don't have to pretend to be something I'm not.
Yeah.
You bring me the data, we can build a couple bats out for you. Then you can come test them, and then we'll back that up with what we gather with it and say, hey, like, here's all your numbers off of this bat, and this bat. You tell us what you like, because the comfort and feel is still going to be the deciding factor for a lot of these guys.
Absolutely. It's funny, man. You're the same hitter when you're hot or cold in the box. It's just how you feel when you're standing in there.
Yeah, and we usually blame the bats for it. So,
That's right.
Yeah, we get to deal with that. That part's not going to change.
All right. So one thing I've always wanted to know, so let's say a big league. I know there's you guys have been huge supporters of Sandlot baseball here in town, which is, thank you for that, by the way.
Absolutely.
And I know that Dad has always been Old Hickory's always been the official bat of all the Sandlot events for 26, 27 years now since its conception. And there's a big old banner out there with Mike Trout and Old Hickory bats, right? So which is a big one. So a guy like Mike Trout, how many bats will a guy like that go through in a year?
Loaded question, because Mike's a little bit different. Mike's actually one of the easiest guys on the planet to work with. We usually touch base around Thanksgiving and make sure that after 12 years, nothing's changed again. And then we write up all his orders and send them through. So he's always got his bats. A normal player with us, you may be looking at, depending on, now with all the contact stuff, 4 to 8 dozen bats a year, depending on playing time, how good of a hitter they are. And people always kind of look at you funny. It's like, how good of a hitter? They're big leaguers. Well, there's different degrees of hitters, in the big leagues. There's guys that hit 330 and go through 10 dozen bats a year. And then there's guys that hit, 280 and go through a half dozen bats a year. A lot of it depends on the model they use, what type of hitter they are. We don't do bats for Luis Araz, but I would venture a guess he uses very few bats over the course of the year.
Right. How do you guys go about this? Has always been fascinating to me. Like, there's a lot of competition out there, and there's and especially now with all the drip.
Oh yeah.
And all that stuff. So like, how do you guys go against, all right, let's just go back to the beginning when you guys were getting started. How did you even break the mold when Louisville Slugger and pretty much Rawlings dominated everything?
Right. So back then, because we were new and one of the few companies that were out there and now available to the professional player, I'm not going to say it was easy, but it was easier to kind of get your foot in the door and have people try it out. And then you're a former player. If you get hot with it, you stick with it. Now there's 40 plus approved bat companies at the big league level. So wow, it's a little muddier now than what it was as far as trying to get in. You brought up Sandlot. For us, from a marketing standpoint, we want to get younger with it. We want to get our bats in front of the kids even before they have the need to swing with bats. That's where the drip comes in. On a very basic level, it's the pinks, the blues, the aquas, the teals, trying to marry those colors to make it more attractive on the shelf for kids.
Yeah.
And then if we're able to tell our story about who we are and what we are to players in the big leagues, then we're developing that next wave of wood bat users as they get into high school, college, summer ball, and eventually into pro ball.
So the industry, the game itself is the greatest game on earth, and it's unbelievable. I was amazed at how high school and college are not the same version of baseball. It's not the same game. It's labeled the same, but it's not. And
I would say big league ball is not the same either as when we were playing.
Oh my gosh. So what's been the biggest changes in big league ball in the last 20 years with stuff like that? Because again, I thought when I went from college to pro, it was the lowest level pro there was. It was night and day. It wasn't the same game.
Yeah, it's the old adage, bigger, stronger, faster. Like you're seeing that in real life, right? Like in playing out in real time right now. No matter what sport you're dealing with. I mean, we just had the NFL draft. Like, just sit back and read some of the heights and weights and speed. The 60-yard, 40-yard dash time in the NFL. Like, these dudes are phenomenal athletes. And I think now what you're seeing at all levels of baseball is the athleticism has taken over the kind of pure baseball player. And when you find those guys that the athleticism marries with the baseball ability or IQ with it, those are the superstars in the making coming up. I am not a proponent of the one sport athlete growing up, but I do think that's had an effect on all sports with it. I think kids are specializing sooner. I think to a degree they're reaching their peak sooner, which is not a good thing. But I think overall that marriage of athleticism and then that sport specific training, the development in that sport married with the athleticism is at an all-time high with it.
I love, I agree with everything you just said. And I love the multi-sport athlete too, because the injury to the baseball player always happens when accidentally he moves in a way that is not in fluid with the game. You know what I mean? And
PSA to high school coaches everywhere: let your kids play multiple sports. I don't care if you're a football coach, basketball, and I was a basketball player growing up, and so I get it. The basketball is probably the hardest sport to kind of manage with other sports. It's doable. Yeah. It's completely doable. And to your point, where I think you were going was, you're going to prevent a lot of injuries that way because basketball is a nonlinear sport.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Baseball kind of falls in between that, the linear movements and the nonlinear stuff. But the more you can train outside of what your specialty is, the stronger your body's going to be with it. That's why you look at a lot of the professional athletes now that, Pilates is so big, yoga, and, for a while, ballet was huge for a lot of the skill guys in the NFL. There's a reason why all that stuff took off. It's training your body in a way that you don't normally use it to help insulate it from injuries down the road.
Man, that's good stuff, dude. That is good stuff. So how much, we can all agree on how we view the industry from outside the clubhouse because, the MLB Network's fantastic, by the way, the coverage they get. But can you give us an inside look of what it's like on the inside of the clubhouse a little bit? Because you get you're a fly on the wall.
Oh yeah,
and a wall that pretty much I would say there's millions of people that would die to be a fly on that wall.
Oh, it's one of the reasons I've done this job for so long. When I got through playing in 2002. I told my wife, I said, I wanted to do something that kept me around the game. Didn't have kids at the time. So, coaching youth baseball, I ended up doing, but that really wasn't what I set out to do. I wanted something that kept me around either the pro game or the college game. Super fortunate that the third phone call I got after I decided to retire was from Old Hickory and never looked back with it. And
I don't even know that story. And by the way, folks, I met Travis at Old Hit After Hit here in Nashville. And I looked up to Travis a lot because he was a few years ahead of me. He just played ball at UT. And where he was a standout player and was going to play pro ball. And I watched your dad and you take BP every night at 9:15 after we'd closed up shop every night. And it's funny after when it was my turn and I was doing that, I did the exact same thing. And it was because I saw you do it.
Yeah. And I've got my younger son who's going to Carson Newman in the fall to play that he's me. So it's, I'll come home from work and we'll eat dinner and we'll be sitting there and all of a sudden he rolls down the hall and he's like, all right, you ready? I'm like, it's 9:00, dude. Ready for what? He's like, I got access to the cage. Let's go hit. I'm like, all right, let's go. So we'll go hit 9:00 at night. If they'd let us turn the lights on at Page High School, we'd be out there taking ground balls at 10:30. So it's probably a good thing they don't let us turn the lights on at night.
That's right. That's right.
But no, so I finished up in the Frontier League in 2002. Actually, the last month or so of that season, I dislocated my wrist. So I was pretty banged up at that point and had made the decision that was going to be it. That was going to hang them up at the end of that year. We were in Richmond, Indiana for the playoffs. Got eliminated in the championship round. I got done. This was, really didn't have cell phones back then, but called my wife, told her that, hey, I'm coming home. It's over. Called my dad, mom and dad and told them. And then just happened that I had just gotten an order of bats to finish the season. And I'm like, well, I'm on the phone. I'll call Old Hickory. They're closed. I'll leave a message like, hey guys, thanks for everything. Hanging them up. Hope to see you soon. And 2 days later, I got a phone call back. It was like, hey, if you're done playing, we'd like you to jump on board. Don't know what we're going to do with you, but I'm like, hey, that'd be great. I got to have wrist surgery. And so I came home, had wrist surgery. That was in end of August, 1st of September. And by the 1st of October, I had a cast on my right hand from the bottom of my fingers up through my elbow. And I was sanding bats with one hand.
Wow.
Trying to figure it out. So that's how I started. John Moyer, one of the founders, John Moyer and Chad Lamberth are the two founders. Chad is the current owner now. John retired 2.5 years ago.
Good for him. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Well deserved for him. And so John, sat me down one day and he goes, look, we really don't have, we just sell bats. We don't have like a pro division. So if that's something you're interested in, run with it. See what you can do with it. And so that's kind of been my niche with Old Hickory, is kind of either running it or overseeing the pro side of it and trying to make that stuff work with our guys and building those relationships.